In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to rank on the first page of Google step by step. These are the exact same strategies I use in my businesses as well as with my clients to consistently rank them at the top of the search engines, bringing them more clicks, more leads, more customers, and more sales. The fact is, these SEO or search engine optimization strategies, well, they work. So if it's higher search engine rankings you're after, I've got a cool plan to share with you. So let's get to it. SEO, or search engine optimization as it's also known, is one of the first marketing strategies that I learned about back in the day when I was first trying to build up my agency. You see, back when I started a decade ago, I started in web design, but I very quickly realized that building a great website, well, it wasn't going to do me any good if nobody could find it. So that led me to learning all about SEO. And once I tapped into this wild and wonderful world, well, things were never the same. You see, once I figured out some of the tricks and tools and tactics to rank my website higher and get to that coveted first position on the first page of Google, well, it started bringing in more clients and better clients than I could have ever dreamed of. But here's the deal, kind of a quick warning. SEO is probably one of the nerdiest and most technical parts of all of marketing. But this is why I follow a 102-point SEO optimization checklist anytime that I optimize a website. If you're newer to SEO or still struggling to get those high search engine rankings, having a checklist to follow can help you in a number of ways. First, it helps you see the bigger picture and the steps that you're going to need to take in order to properly optimize a website for those top search engine rankings. Next, it helps you track the elements that you've done and the tasks you still need to complete. And sometimes these are the things that can mean the difference between a first page ranking or a second page ranking. And let's be honest, a second page ranking is about as useless as a 10th page ranking, because nobody's going to the second page. I'm gonna go through a lot of the most important points here in this video, but if you'd like to get a copy of the exact SEO optimization checklist that I use, I'll make sure to put a link to it in the description box below, as well as an associated discount code to get you 25% off of it. If you're serious about getting higher rankings, I highly recommend checking it out. Okay, so let's get started with the foundation. The very first thing you wanna do anytime you're thinking about ranking a website, whether it's a new property or even an existing web property, is properly setting up and integrating Google Analytics. At its core, essentially what Google Analytics allows you to do is to track the analytics, the metrics, the data, to see what kind of people and where they're visiting from and what kind of interaction and behavior and all sorts of engagements people are taking with your website. The more information you have about how people are finding your website as well as what actions they're taking on your website, well, the better you're going to be able to design an SEO strategy to make sure that you're optimizing the parts that need optimizing and leveraging the parts that are already working in your favor. The next thing you're going to want to do is take advantage of Google Analytics' older brother, which is the Google Search Console. Essentially, just because you build a website, well, it doesn't mean necessarily that Google's going to find it, or find it in the right way, or index it in the right way. And this is where Google Search Console really comes in handy. But aside from just telling Google that you have a website and you'd like for them to rank it, it also gives you some other valuable metrics like your website load speed as well as how it's looking on mobile. Once you've got that done, it's time to head back to your website and to integrate an SEO solution or a piece of SEO software directly into your website. For WordPress, probably the most common and most popular one is known as Yoast SEO. Having a tool like this allows you to make fast and easy, relatively simple changes to your overall website structure and its content and all sorts of different variables that will impact your page ranking. Okay, so once the foundational stuff is done, it's time to move on to the next step, which is all about user experience. The very first thing you need to understand about optimizing your website for user experience is the fact that the vast majority of traffic in most cases is going to come from mobile devices, which means your website needs to be optimized for mobile devices. Now, the average is around 60% of all traffic is mobile, but fortunately, you've got Google Analytics set up, so you can see exactly what percentage is coming from desktop or mobile or other being things like your TV. Now, this is an incredibly important step to higher search engine rankings that really can't be overlooked. When I say optimize your website for mobile, I mean prioritizing mobile, really making sure that the user experience on a mobile device is equal or even better than that on a desktop. Once that's done, it's time to move on to another user experience factor, which is all about load speed. Here's the deal. If your website loads faster, if people don't have to wait even a second, well, you're gonna rank higher. In fact, even a 1-second delay in your website load time, well, can result in a loss of 7% of website conversions. And that adds up over time. The next thing you wanna do is make sure that you keep your URLs, or essentially the address of your website and of the pages on it, as short and as clear as possible. For example, if I wanted to offer a link to a marketing plan, I would put adamerhart.com/plan. What I wouldn't want to do is put adamerhart.com/click here to download your free marketing plan. Okay, next up, let's talk about performance. One of the biggest factors of your website performance really comes down to your web host, or the company that you're using to host your website, to store the content and to make it accessible by your audience. Now, the big players in the game are Bluehost and GoDaddy and HostGator, but I'll put my personal recommendation in the description box below. And the reason I don't want to say it on camera right now is because these things change. The services adapt and evolve, and sometimes some are better than others. So make sure to do due diligence, make sure to do research, and if you're unhappy with your current web host, it's all right to change. Another thing that can help with your website performance, and also improve your page load speed, has to do with resizing massive image files. Here's the deal. With most people looking at your website from a mobile device, even if they're looking at it on a desktop, you probably don't need massive image files. And you do yourself a lot of good by simply downsizing, downsampling, and making the image file a whole lot smaller. Okay, now let's get technical. All right, so the very first thing you need to do with your website, if you haven't already, is make sure to switch it over to HTTPS. Essentially what this is making your website more secure. And search engines love a fast and secure website. Man, they love it, like for real. They love that stuff. In fact, switching over to HTTPS is so important that if two websites are sort of ranked neck and neck with similar domain authority, similar page ranking and speeds and all of that, but one of them has HTTPS and the other just HTTP, well, the S is gonna win. All right, the next thing you wanna make sure you've got is a sitemap, and that you've created a sitemap and then uploaded it to the Google Search Console. What a sitemap essentially does is provide more data to the search engines about your site, about its layout, and about its content, which allows the search engines to more accurately crawl your website, making sure that you're getting all the credit that you deserve. Another thing you want to create is a robots file. And what a robots file does is allows you to tell the search engines which pages to crawl and which ones to ignore. This is important because you want to make sure that you're prioritizing those high value content loaded pages and possibly ignoring the ones that are not really that important or that you don't even want to rank for. All right, next up, let's talk about content. Here's the deal. Whether we're talking about SEO or marketing in general, content is just so incredibly important, I can't even begin to describe it, though I will try. You see, if you think about it for a second, what does Google have to use in order to determine what website is better than another website so it can rank it higher? Well, of course, it has things like off-page factors and links, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but the main way is by the content that's on the website itself. What are the topics? What are the subjects? What are the keywords that are embedded throughout the website? You see, it's Google's goal to provide its searcher with the most relevant and accurate and up-to-date information possible, which is why it's important to have useful and relevant and accurate content on your website, and lots of it. So with that said, here are a couple tips to really make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck from all of your content, especially when it comes to ranking it for the search engines. The very first thing you want to do before creating or even thinking about creating content is do some pretty in-depth keyword research. What this means is finding out what keywords your market is using, what keywords they're searching for, and what keywords you want your website to rank for. For example, as a marketing strategist, I like ranking for terms around marketing and marketing strategy and content marketing and social media marketing and advertising and things like that. On the other hand, if I started ranking for things like how to grow a flower garden or how to fix a 67 Cadillac, wouldn't do me any good. And yes, while these examples are extreme, the same thing can be said about your business to really make sure that you're ranking and prioritizing the right keywords for you. Once you've got that done, it's time to move on to the next step, which is to create long-form content around these keywords. Here's the deal. Like I've already said, Google wants content and they want lots of content, which means that it's not enough to just throw up a flimsy half-written page with a couple hundred words, especially when you could go a whole lot deeper and really build out a solid piece of valuable and helpful content. What this means is no more 200-word blog posts. Rather, you should be aiming for around 800 words to 1,500 words, maybe 2,000. maybe even 3,000. I appreciate that sounds like a whole lot, but you can take the less is more approach here by really focusing on the quality of the content rather than just trying to fill up your website with as much random content as possible. Once you've got your keyword decided and you've started building out your long form content, you want to create what Brian Dean calls skyscraper content or what Moz calls 10x content. Essentially, your goal is to try to create the single best piece of content for this topic on the internet. Now I appreciate that is also a huge and lofty goal, which is why it's invaluable and important to go after longer tail and slightly more specific keywords, rather than trying to rank for these massive competitive keywords right off the bat. But if you can take this piece of content and inject videos and quotes and infographics and lots of links and all sorts of things to really beef it up, well, the better you're gonna find it does. All right, let's move on to some more tips about on-page SEO. This first piece of advice applies both to Google as well as to YouTube, which no secret that Google owns YouTube and their search engines work in a very similar way. Well, that advice is to focus your SEO for people, not for search engines themselves. Sounds counterintuitive, right? After all, we're talking about SEO right here. We're going over all kinds of technical stuff. But you've got to keep that in balance with making sure that your content doesn't end up looking totally fake or totally keyword stuff or totally designed just for the robots and not for the people that actually need to use it. You see, user signals that Google receives from the searchers and from the users of your website are powerful drivers, which means if you get somebody to click on your first page ranking, but then they immediately hit the back button and bounce, your rankings are going to tank very quickly. Another important on-page ranking factor has to do with including the relevant keyword for the word that you're trying to rank in the URL, in the title, and in the body copy itself. Yes, Google is really smart, and it can use something called latent semantic indexing, LSI. Again, kind of nerdy talk for finding synonyms and things that look like your keyword but aren't exactly your keyword. But you don't want to rely on that. You want to give the search engines exactly what they want, which is the keyword and variations of the keyword that you're trying to rank for, and put it everywhere, within reason. Next, make sure that your content is properly formatted so that it looks good and that it reads well. This means breaking up long clumps of text with H1 headings and H2 headings and H3 headings, which unsurprisingly will also help with your search engine rankings and allow you to put in different variations and different versions of your keywords. All right, now let's talk about off-page SEO. The very first thing you need to think about when it comes to off-page SEO is making sure that you've got a thorough and strategic link building plan in place. Gone are the days, long gone are the days, where you could just throw thousands and thousands of spammy links at your website and expect it to rank. Now, doing that will have the exact opposite approach. It'll hurt your rankings and it may damage your website permanently. This is why your goal should be to acquire high quality and relevant backlinks from other high quality, relevant sources to your website. All of these signals provide clues and provide cues to the search engines themselves that your website is valuable and worth linking to. So they should probably rank it. Fortunately, some of these things are relatively simple to do, and it revolves around building something called foundational links. Foundational links are links like from social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also from high authority directories like Yelp and Yellow Pages and the Better Business Bureau. Could also be from very niche specific directories that are relevant only to you and to your industry. If you're having trouble with this though, another viable alternative is to do something known as guest posting. Guest posting is still very much alive and well today, where what you're going to do is you're going to create content for another person's website. They in turn are going to rank back to your website, which will help with your authority and your link building efforts. All right, now I appreciate we covered a whole lot of stuff, but we only just scratched the surface, which is why if you're really interested in getting higher search engine rankings, you're going to want to head down to the description box below to check out that link. Use the coupon Erhart and you'll get 25% off when you purchase today. And for even more tips on search engine optimization, make sure to check out the video I have linked up right here. So check that out now, and I'll see you in the next episode. All right, the next thing that we have to talk about, and now is as good a time as any, is the NAP. And the NAP stands for name, address, and phone number. And the thing that you have to remember when we're talking